Fred?
Nope, no better.
Meeting will come to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I was going to say the same thing to you.
Approve agenda. Any additions, corrections?
Make a motion to approve agenda.
I'll second it.
I can make a motion.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to move to add to the agenda discussion of the position we're advertising for in the auditor's office.
Okay, hang on. Let's do this.
Under discussion items, you want discussion, huh?
Is that what were you thinking, Jack?
Pardon?
Under discussion? Or where on the agenda do you want to put it?
I would assume yes.
Okay. All right, I'll second it.
Bob, you had some reservations?
You had a motion and a second, now you made a motion and a second, you got two motions and seconds on it.
Oh,
Oh, sorry, I'm not even paying attention right now.
oh, yeah, I'm sorry. So the first motion was to accept the agenda.
And it was seconded.
Okay,
But then
And then yours was
Amendment.
discussion to add that,
right.
so amendment.
I'd like to amend it to add that.
there we go. And then we can vote on the amendment.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Now we can vote on
Now we
the
gotta
original.
Now we
vote on
have
the
to vote
first
on.
one.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We've got minutes from the 9/19 meeting and the 9/19 or the regular meeting and then the special budget meeting. Are there any
I move approval.
questions or comments? Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Now, questions or comments? Getting ahead here again. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Opposed? Public comment? Anyone?
My name is Adam Swan. I'm this court administrator for the city of Caledonia. I'm here for two reasons. Yep.
Could you please
Sure.
sit down and use the mic?
No
Thank
problem.
you.
I'm sorry, what is, your name was?
Yes, my name is Adam Swan. I'm the clerk administrator for the city of Caledonia. And I'm here actually for two reasons. First off, I want to praise the work that, I want to express my appreciation for the work done by the auditor's office. And the second thing too is to urge the board to fill the current position. I really can't say enough positive things about the work that's been done by the auditor's office over the past 2 years since moving here. I've been just thoroughly impressed by the professionalism of their office. They provide phenomenal support for the city in terms of everything for the elections to tax levy information to property tax information. It seems like anytime we need an answer, ultimately it somehow ends up that the auditor's office is the one that actually can give us the answer. And so I just really can't say enough positive things in terms of, especially in terms of the election, the amount of training that went into not only getting the city ready, but also getting all the other townships in the county ready. I mean, numerous election judge trainings, head election judge trainings, clerk trainings, practices with voting machines, processing absentee ballots, making sure that people are registered properly. I mean, the amount of work that goes into it was mind-blowing. I mean, I had never done an election before, so for me it was really overwhelming, and making sure the voting machines are working, being available the day of the election to make sure that if there are questions. So I just, again, the amount of support we got was phenomenal. And, you know, everybody I've talked to about it, I've said, you know, the auditor's office did just a superb job, and we're really, really blessed to have somebody that competent and that, well organized in any locality. And when I see some of the voting irregularities that go on around the country, I think they wouldn't have these problems if they had somebody like Shar and her team. So, that's sort of the first part of it, and that kind of relates to the second part of my point, which is, Shar's done a great job in the office, but no matter how good your leader is, if you don't have a good support staff, you're not going to be successful. And I really would ask the board, both not only on behalf of the city, but also as a citizen of Caledonia, that to please fill that position, because for one thing, the amount of work that goes into it, I'm not sure how one person could do in terms of doing all the trainings, getting all the PowerPoints, presentations, getting all the handouts. I mean, if you can imagine being in a room, we were downstairs in the Justice Center, room of probably 60 people, all of whom were, a good majority of people not exactly sure what they were doing, and having to be responsible for getting everybody up to date on how to be a judge. It really does take a team effort, and I mean, Shar and Michelle really did work side by side on that, not only for the training part of it, the actual, absentee part of it, to even counting the ballots. I mean, if you could imagine coming in at 11 o'clock at night, from voting booth, and having, all these different clerks and head judges showing up with, pieces of tape this long and trying to compute all those numbers. We honestly, if it were just up to one person, you wouldn't have had the results for probably, who knows, probably a day. I mean, for at least from the county's perspective. So, and related to that too, it's not just only the support that we get, but is, I would hate to see what would happen to the county if, it's good to have somebody else who knows what's going on and how to do the job. And if if God forbid something would happen and let's say Shar's unavailable, what then? I mean, if you have nobody who knows the training, nobody knows what they're doing, it really puts all of us at risk. And so, really we'd be really in a world of hurt. So I guess it's my perspective that, the core function of government, elections and taxes are two of the biggest things. So, look, I perfectly respect that you want to save money. I mean, as a city administrator, we're always looking to, how do we best serve the public? But when it comes to a core essential function like taxes and elections, that's one of those things that it's sometimes better to be safe than sorry. And again, if, once it's broken, it's very, very hard to fix. So anyway, I just would ask you to advertise that position and really make sure the county's best protected for the future. And I appreciate your time. So thank you.
Thank you. Courtney.
I think Doc wants to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Bob Burns, resident, City of Caledonia. I'm here with regard to the elected officials' positions within the county and whether or not you eliminate the elected officials and turn them into appointed officials. For as long as I can remember, the county has always had elected officials. And I think the taxpayers have done a good job as far as electing the officials, be it the county board and the various department heads that we have in the county, and I would prefer not to see it become appointed positions, but remain elected positions and answerable to the electorate rather than to the county board. And that said, I don't know, and I asked Sam how easy it is to make that change. Is it something that just the county board as a simple majority can do? Does it take a super majority to make a change like that? Do you have to have a referendum from the voters? I know this is under discussion, so I'm sure you have to educate yourselves too as far as how that process works. From my perspective, as a citizen and a voter in Houston County, I would prefer to see it stay elected officials. That's all I've got. Thank you.
I would just mention that this came up previously, previous boards I know talked about it. Or something. Greg Davids has to approve anything like that, and he wouldn't do it without a referendum from what I understand, so it's probably a moot
And I know
point.
there's a process. I don't know what it is, and you have to educate yourselves on that as far as that's concerned. I'm just giving my opinion as far as my feelings on
Sure.
whether or not they should be elected or appointed. So,
Appreciate it.
thank you for the time.
Thank you. Okay, Courtney.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Courtney.
So I'm here today to fill you in on the situation with Camp Winnebago as it relates to the EDA's relationship with it. As you all know, I'm sure, Camp Winnebago has decided to close its doors this year, and they do have an outstanding loan with the EDA. We received a letter, their payment ceased in June 2017, and shortly after we received a letter notifying us of the camp's imminent closing. And so right now they owe just over $14,000 on a $30,000 loan, and we've been told that the land is going to be put up for sale if it hasn't already been on the market now, and they expect to make that payment in full once that land is sold. At this point, they're not able to make payments, but they have acknowledged that they do owe this money to the EDA, and so we're fairly confident that we will get it back once the land is sold. They do have another mortgage first, which is $370,000 to a bank. But at last time I talked to the realtor, the land was valued at over $600,000. And so, again, we're fairly confident that we will get this money back, but right now we kind of just need a next step. And so I spoke with Sam, and we have decided that what we think is kind of the best option is just to write them a letter saying, we got your letter, we acknowledge that you're in this position, and we will give you 12 months to repay the loan as long as you sell the land. And we'll just kind of keep in touch with them, touch in every 60 days or so. And so we're just looking for your approval to go ahead and send that letter and just to stay on top of this, but give them some time to get this land sold so we can get repaid.
Courtney, do you know if say that land did sell for $600,000, after they pay the bank and they pay the loan, do you know what's going to happen
Yep.
with the rest of that money?
So as a nonprofit, they have to give the money to another nonprofit. And
Okay.
so what I've read is that they'll be giving it to organizations that have a similar mission to what they did
Okay.
with disabilities and things. But yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing.
Mhm.
Excellent.
Any questions for Courtney?
Now, Courtney, do you need a motion?
Yes, I would just like a motion to approve to authorize me to send that letter to the Camp Winnebago.
Okay, so moved.
Second.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Well, let's see. I've been working on a lot of fun stuff with a few things. The Spring Grove Soda Pop expansion is looking like it's moving forward. The city recently approved the putting in a TIF district, which would help finance the cost of the sewer. We are also still working on a workforce development program in partnership with the 4 schools in Houston County. And actually, now I have to scoot to another meeting to talk with Brian Cashman he works for the education district, and also Ginny with workforce development. So we're coming up with some cool programs to try to get the businesses more involved with schools and hopefully create workforce pipelines. And then lastly, I wanted to invite you all to an event next week for Manufacturers Week. We're lucky to have a lot of great manufacturers in the county, and so next week CETA is actually putting on the event. It's going to be held in Caledonia at 10 a.m. up at Mikan. And so if you're available, we'd love to
What
see you
day
there.
is it?
Next Thursday,
You have
10
the date?
a.m. I think it's the 6th. Or maybe the 5th.
Yeah, Thursday.
Yep.
Or is it the
Yep.
5th?
Thursday is the 5th.
Or is it the 5th? Yep. Thursday the 5th at 10 a.m. at Mikan. So if you're available to come, we're going to have some tours, and a representative from the governor's office will be providing some certificates to some manufacturers. So
10 a.m. where?
Mikan.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Have you been spending a lot of time at that new distillery?
I've been trying to keep that off work hours,
Okay.
but it gets hard.
I didn't hear any rumors, I'm just asking.
Okay.
Thanks
Yes,
very
thank
much.
you.
Keep up the
Thanks,
good
Rick.
work. Rick, good morning.
I sent into your packets a wetland application. There's a company called Sunrise Energy Ventures. They're looking to put up solar panels. It's down in the La Crescent area, down by Miller's Corner. They wanted the county to make a determination on the wetland, which the TEP panel did take a look at everything, and it is all a non-wetland. But they still wanted for their records that that determination was made. So we went through all the formalities of it, and it went out on public notice with no comments, and then I'm bringing it to the board for approval now. And then if approved by the board here, I'll send that letter out to them saying it's non-wetland, that the project can proceed as far as the wetlands are concerned.
Okay, what's the location again exactly? Or not exactly, but,
You know where the stockpile there of Zinke's is? Just go west of that yet, but it's up on that, behind the buildings there. I don't know who owns that.
oh, okay.
It's up on the bluff.
I know where you mean.
It's
yeah.
an open, yeah, they
think Miller's
they
still
crop
on
it.
that.
Pardon?
I think Miller still own that, don't they?
Weezer, I think, bought it.
Yes, that's,
Okay.
yes,
Weezer
yes.
Enterprises.
Now that you said that.
So it's on the hill above the stockpile?
No, go farther west. It's
Goes
behind the
west.
buildings. Weezer bought the buildings or the farm there.
Yeah.
And it's up on the, it's not anywhere, it's west of that bluff or the stockpile.
Oh, okay, towards
There's a-
Holcomb or?
Yes.
That way. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's that like bench that's up behind the buildings up
Yeah,
there?
it's, they're cropping it now. It's all hay ground.
I
But
see.
they just wanted to make sure all their bases are covered before they go proceed on it. So,
Do they have to go through La Crescent Township though, don't they, with this?
Yes.
Isn't that Zaw Township?
yes.
Yeah, this is just to recognize.
That there is no affected wetlands.
Right.
Right.
And the DNR has looked at it, you said, and
Yeah, they're part of our TEP group, the Corps of Engineers, the DNR, and the county, Soil Conservation Service. We all took a look at it.
Fish and
yes.
Wildlife.
Well, there was geese up there when we were there.
This is, usually anytime you get close to the water, you get every agency.
Yeah. But- So if I could get approval on that to,
I'll make a motion to approve moving forward with the solar
well,
approval.
it's a non-wetland.
That there's
issue.
non-wetland,
Yeah.
yes.
Second.
Any other questions?
What's the next step, Rick?
The next step here is just for myself or my office to send a letter to them saying that it's been approved by the board as a
But
non-wetland.
where does the solar company go next?
Probably to the township, for their permits. And I would assume they're probably having that discussion already.
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Rick, were you going to talk about bids for non-recycled or for recyclables?
Yeah, you're on the agenda for,
Processing recycled.
Every year, we do have a contract with Harders right now. It's a 3-year contract. And that will be coming up for bids again. And what I need is authorization from the board then to proceed. That's under contract. And then what I'd like to do, the recyclables that we generate at the drop sites get hauled over to La Crosse for processing. We have in the past used Hilltoppers. We have used, and this last time now, Harders came in as the cheapest bid for us. And what I'd like to do is, because the contract is finalized here at the end of 17 here, is to go out and advertise for those bids again for the next 3 years. So,
I would make a motion to approve soliciting bids for
Recycle.
recycling removal.
the bids, what they are is, right now, the county actually is making money. What we do is it's bid two ways. One's for rigids, one's for the fibered material. And right now, the markets are they're quite lucrative as far as the fibered material, so it's actually paying for our rigid processing, and we're getting money every month now back for, that goes to set some of the costs for the drop sites.
Let me second that quick before we keep talking.
Now we can have discussion.
What constitutes the fiber?
Well, your papers,
Oh.
newspapers, magazines.
Is that including like cardboard and stuff too?
Well, the cardboard we separate out. We bring that back for ourselves,
Okay.
and we process that down in Houston, and that's always been a moneymaker for us. That,
Okay.
again, helps offset some of the cost for the solid waste.
Good.
Did you get, out of curiosity, speaking of recyclables, did you happen to get an email from, and I don't know if it was just me that got it or if it was a county thing, but Jeremy Miller had sent out a deal with his family being in the scrap business, talking about with the hurricane down in Houston, and they added, how much extra metals are going to be out there. They're talking about potential price increase for scrap going up. So
Didn't get it, but
I'll forward it to you. But anyways, it was interesting. So looking at the recycling side of it.
metal is, like I said, is always, right now it's good. There's been times in the past that it's really fallen that,
Yeah.
it's costing to get rid of it. But
And then other times where it's 300 a ton and you can't get rid of it fast enough.
You're right. Can't get enough of it.
That's true. That's true.
Okay. All in favor? No, we.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
you're losing track here. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank
You
you.
got what you need.
Yes.
Thanks very much. Tess, I'm confused. We have 9:30 closed session. When I talked to you, you said 10 o'clock is,
Correct,
so we still have the closed session?
correct,
Okay. So now you want to do personnel, though?
please.
Okay. Please.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Environmental Services, we're requesting the hire of Sam Benson, B-E-N-S-O-N, as a 67-day employee drop site supervisor at a wage of $12.99 per hour. That would be effective immediately. This request is coming from the Director of Environmental Services.
I'd make a motion to approve the hire of the 67-day employee.
I'll second it.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Okay, and just as an update for those who may not be as familiar with this, this does not add to our, it does not add to the financial burden. It is just so that we have are able to completely staff the drop sites. We also are requesting an adjustment to a cell phone stipend that we made a request for last month. And that is, we're requesting that the mobile computing device stipend be reduced from $50 a month to the $30 rate for a cell phone for Audrey Stagemeyer. Upon reflection with the department head and I determined that the email access was not required or necessary.
I'd
So
make,
moved. Take your pick. Give the other one the second.
I'll second.
Questions? All in favor? Opposed? Approved.
Thank you. And that is, I understand from one, that there is potential interest in a discussion of the auditor's positions.
We put that
Under
into the
discussion.
discussion items.
Okay, not for this.
Right.
Okay,
Not for
Thank you.
now, for later.
thank you. That's all I have, other than the closed session.
Was Anthony Doctor on your list? I thought I saw that.
No?
Oh, must have. Maybe it was last week's.
For the sign specialist?
Yeah, to approve him, I thought, but we did that last week.
I think we did that last week. Okay. So at this time, I'd like to request, pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.03, Subdivision 1B, to discuss strategy for labor negotiations, including labor negotiation strategies or developments, or discussion and review labor negotiation proposals conducted pursuant to Sections 179A.01 to 179A.25. Sorry. Statutory verbiage.
I'll move for closed session.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you. And it should be brief for those who are waiting.
Okay.
Just very brief.
So I would entertain a motion to adjourn the, or, don't have to? Okay. All right, we'll move to closed session. Reopen the meeting?
I'll second it.
No, I'm asking for.
I'll move.
Oh, I thought you were making.
You can
it.
second anyway, that's
Okay.
fine.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's reopened.
I'll make this a statement if you wish, or would you rather, Commissioner?
Go ahead. You can summarize.
Shar, it didn't work.
It didn't come through?
No.
I just sent it to you.
I know.
And you didn't receive it?
No, I got a sign up, connection to server failed.
Oh, okay.
There
You're
must be
not.
an issue, I'm not able to connect either, so we must have an issue with our wireless.
Wunderbar.
We met in closed session to discuss labor negotiation strategies. There were no decisions as far as motions made during that meeting, and nor is there a proposal to make a motion coming out of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Set proposed budget and tax levy for 2018.
I've got,
Maybe Carol wants to
Yep,
explain
Carol.
it.
Are there questions about the information that went out after all of the adjustments that we made and or what the board needs to actually address?
Explain why there are two sets of adjustments
All right, so on the summary that was sent of the levy, the first column shows the budget and the levy based on the requests submitted by the departments and levying for the human services need as opposed to using fund balance. The middle column takes the amount that human services would use in fund balance, as John reflected in his budget report, adding the two staff and also paying for them through fund balance rather than levying. So that's why there's the middle column, or middle set of numbers for levies. And the end set of numbers shows 3 additional staff requests that were made. And the one being veteran service that would actually cost money because the other 2 would be paid either with committed funds or a grant. So the veteran service support staff increase was from 0.5 to 1.0. And of course, if the board wished, they could set it at any other FTE also. The minimum that it would cost the county would be $21,254. And the sheriff proposed adding an administrative assistant to assist with the permit to carry applications, and because of the overtime or comp time that was being accrued by the current staff in dealing with these when it comes to that time. But it can be paid for with the fees that are collected from those permits, so that's what would pay for the position. It wouldn't need levy money. And then the zoning person to work on the buffer enforcement and other things in their department would be paid through the grant funds that are received. So that's why they're showing 0 increases. So the board has to decide if they're going to approve the 2 social worker positions, an increase in the veteran service support staff, the other 2 positions.
Are paid for,
And
or have money
yeah.
coming in.
Well, they still have to be, the positions still have to be approved to be added in.
So the
and-
difference between the middle column and the end column is just the 21,000
Right.
for the veteran services.
Right.
Otherwise, they're identical because fund balance is paying for
Right.
the social workers. Okay,
Mhm.
so, and the first column doesn't show any of the fund balance being used or
Right.
the.
That's
extra.
saying we're going to levy for the amount that Human Services needs in addition to what they had levied last year.
Right. So the first, these 2 are the same, except adding veteran services, which we really did not discuss whether we're going to do that or not.
No, that hasn't been approved.
No.
So we could have go with the middle column, because that one we did agree that we would use fund balance for the other.
You would have to approve that you're going to use the fund balance. You had the presentation
We
by
discussed
John,
it,
which,
yes.
kind of outlined
Right.
the amount that they were at, and since there's the 3 positions in the last column, and the veteran service one is the one that costs, so they all 3 could actually be addressed later
Mhm.
when the final budget is set. But you do want to take that into consideration, and the fact that we're budgeting a
For the
zero
levy.
COLA, and it's a negotiating year when you're setting the levy. Because really, in looking, if we didn't increase the levy, we would need $17,285 to balance the budget, to be used from fund balance,
If we went with veteran services.
if you went with the veteran service.
But we can always cut it. This is a preliminary discussion.
Right.
We're levy.
That's
So after
no
this, we
levy
can
increase.
say-
That's a 0 increase.
Mhm.
I guess there's a part of me, though, that I'd like to make the decision up front versus, either we decide we're going to do it and then set the levy, my thing is it's kind of going in circles if we say, well, we're going
Right.
to set the levy, then we're going to go back.
Especially because there was the request made for 2017,
Mhm.
and it really didn't get addressed. It just kind of went away. So I think he would like to know one way or the other whether the board was going to support that or not.
I personally feel that we have a person that covers extension and that could do veteran services, answer the phone, take messages without adding another half a position.
I agree.
But, ideally, he would like somebody there full-time. I mean, that's,
It's justified.
we always like that. But I know Kelly, or I shouldn't be using names, but when she moved over to extension, Jean used to answer the phone and do stuff for veteran services at the time. And I was under the understanding Kelly would do the same. But that would have to be addressed to make sure she does. So I would definitely, my feeling, go with the middle column, which shows the fund balance used for social workers. And I did let everybody know that I talked to counties at Joint Powers Board meeting last week, 2 of them, with what most counties are going up. Of course, everybody does what's right for them based on most of them were done with union contracts already, went with the 2, 3, and 3.5% COLAs, and price of salt and the road construction costs have gone up and stuff. So the majority, the lowest was a 4% preliminary that they were going to set today.
They can be lowered but not raised.
I don't think we need a 4% just from all the cuts and the way the budgets came in. Quite a few of them were lower than they were last year.
Right.
So we really don't need, I don't feel that we need to go 4%. But I also agree that we can't go 0 because of the fact that then we have no working room at all. I would propose that we go with a 2% levy increase.
How does,
Well, wait, is that a motion?
I'll make a motion to go with 2%.
Is there a second? Second?
I think the lack of a second indicates that we just aren't quite ready to do that yet. We may wind up at that number after some more discussion, but I don't think we're quite ready to do it yet. That is what I'm sort of sensing.
Okay.
Ayes for lack of a second?
We have to keep in mind that we have to decide if there are going to be any increased costs in salary negotiations. That's got to come from someplace.
that's what I wanted to discuss.
And that, I think, is the thing that you just indicated. We need to talk about that, whether we're going to get that from reductions someplace within the budget, or if we're going to get it out of fund balance, or just where it's going to come from, because they're probably, I'm guessing, I have no idea, but I'm guessing there'll be some increased costs associated with salary negotiations.
Right.
Well, you know, to be honest, this is where this gets to be kind of a, I guess I'll be blunt, a poor way of doing business when we haven't even gotten into negotiations and we have to set the levy yet.
Yeah, that makes it difficult.
You know,
yes.
from my aspect, I am not one that is going to allow the negotiations or whatever to do my talking for me or my position. You know, I guess if we're going to set the levy and this is what we have to work with, and we go to negotiations saying you can't get that because we already set the levy and there's no money. I mean, you know, it's the board needs to decide how much money is you know, are we willing to go to the taxpayers, and you know, if we set that, go to negotiations and they want $1 million increases, you can't do it. You know, I mean, there is some ground that you could hold firm on.
Right.
Real quick, Carol, what is, so that middle yellow column?
Mm-hmm.
So why are those numbers? Explain this to me. Why are all those numbers in the negative? How does that? How is
Because
that
we
working?
would be levying more than what our budget requires right now. We would be budgeting a surplus.
So what you're saying is, if we went with that middle column,
Mm-hmm.
and you set the county levy at 0, we still would have a surplus of almost 4,000.
Right.
Okay.
400,000.
No, what's
No,
this?
4,000.
4,000. If
Where
you
are
set it
where
at
are
0.
you pointing?
Right here.
Oh, okay.
So, and if you look down, each 1% of
Oh, I'm
levy
looking at the
increase
3%.
produces about $129,000, that little box down on the bottom. So if you were to levy 1%,
I see.
you would add $129,000 to that surplus you're budgeting,
Right, to
and the 2%
4,000.
would, you would have $262,000 surplus that you're budgeting.
On the budget figures that we have been seeing, has salary increase been included?
No, we didn't
Okay.
include any salary increase, only step increases for
Only step,
employees who
okay.
were due.
So this yellow has
Interesting.
the steps included?
Steps
Yes.
included, but no COLA.
Gotcha.
That's right.
Mhm.
Well, one other thing too. So I passed around. I can get it to the press so you can see it. But just keeping in mind a few statistics when looking at what to do with the levy. We can go down and look at it, but recent tax levy increases from 2010 to 2016, and these are numbers I've gotten over the months from Carol. But you can kind of see since 2010 to 2016, total increases around 35.76%. Cumulative tax increases from 2005 to 16 is about 123%. Keeping in mind too that wheelage tax that we pass is equivalent to about a 2% increase to the levy. At roughly 196, I think is what it was first set at, whatever it's at now. Obviously, number 4 is just kind of the rankings. That was the information that Teresa got us that one time with the rankings in the county. And then looking down in 5 and 6, just kind of some national numbers. In the last 5 years, Social Security has only gone up 5.2%. National inflation is about 6.6%. And from 2013 to 15, average household income from the state of Minnesota is 4.4%. And the average weekly wage for citizens amongst Houston County is the lowest in the state. So just keeping that stuff in mind, just wanted to make sure everybody's aware and cognizant that when we set this levy, what we're looking at. So I guess with that said, I've been on the side ever since I've been a commissioner. I would love to see a 0% increase. With negotiations, I would like to see a little harder line on that side too. And looking at 0% increase, even right here, still having a surplus of $4,000, then I would move to have a 0% levy increase.
Is there a second? Anybody second? Guess that motion dies for lack of a second. Well, we have to set something.
By law, we have to set something today. We could compromise and go with a 1% increase. I feel counties that have gone with 0 get caught in the long run using up their fund balance or playing catch up in future years. And we have been going down each year with setting our levy.
Mhm.
And we do have to take in consideration the cost of doing business. Just road costs alone are going up.
But that, and
I
too,
know.
that has been included
I know.
in the numbers
Yes,
here,
it
those
has.
I know.
increases
But I
in
hate
costs.
to put us so tight that we haven't even started negotiations. And
Right.
we got to hold firm in those too, and I do agree.
And we have to negotiate.
I would make a motion for a 1% levy increase.
Is there a second?
I'll second it. Well,
Discussion.
we have to go somewhere.
Anyone?
No, I'll just say, obviously I'm pleased with 1% versus anything else. I think that's been the lowest we've done in a little while.
Yes,
Ever.
I
in
want
a
to
while.
clarify. I want to clarify too that we could still reduce it to 0.
You
Yes.
can.
Right.
Yes, you
Yeah,
can.
we can go down to
Or
0,
you
yeah.
can decrease the levy. I
But
don't know that
We can never
that's
go above 1, though.
ever happened,
Correct.
but you cannot go above 1 now,
Right.
or once you all vote.
Right. If it's a,
If that's-
right.
Are we going to do a roll call vote or, no? And I don't mean that. And you did have the fund balance that was presented, and I don't believe that there's any fund that couldn't absorb settlements from with the unions.
With the COLA.
Mhm. You know, and Human Services has proposed using their fund balance. There is, but you also have to be cautious in that, because everything that you are approving to spend out of fund balance is going to continue. So you don't want to get to that where, oh, now we don't have fund balance, so we have to do the 6% increase or the 8% increase just to balance our budget. So I think it's a good approach. The 1%, it does give a cushion, which most likely will be used.
No, it won't.
Okay, it won't.
Just kidding. We'll see. That's what negotiations are about. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried.
So you also need to approve the budget that goes along with that tax levy with the numbers as they were proposed in your listings.
With the understanding that they're fluid.
Yes. You know,
The understanding is still that it's subject to change.
Right.
That's the max.
And your budget isn't like your levy. Your levy, you know, is set preliminarily. You can't go up. Your budget is moving always. We make budget amendments even throughout the year. You know, after we made our preliminary budget, our final budget, and then we make adjustments throughout the year, because there are always different things that happen. It's just that you can't get any more levy money to address those things that happen.
Right.
So we have to be aware that although the budget isn't, for lack of a better term, set in stone, it's still something that's pretty serious, because we really can't
Right.
make very many upward adjustments without getting into trouble.
Right, because then you're going to be using money that,
Yeah.
That's not levied and
that's not levied. And it is something that you've reviewed quite a few times. You know, I'm sure you've looked through it. You know, we went through it with the departments. I can't say that in the future the line item budget is what you're going to want to be seeing. I think you're going to be looking at you know, combinations, the services provided more so than each individual department. But for the new commissioners, I think it was beneficial to see what each department deals with.
Very much so. So do you need a motion to approve the general revenue? Is that what
A
you-
motion to adopt the proposed budget. And the proposed budget are all of, what it will actually be the last page on the blue sheets. That shows the revenue budget, and the tax levy will be added, amount will be added to that, and then it shows the expenditures. And that 13,398,263 will become the 113,000. See it on page 5?
We talking
Yep,
this package?
on that one.
Page 5.
On page 5. There it shows each fund and the revenues that are budgeted and the expenditures that are budgeted. And there it's showing that 13,398,263. Oh, that's the old one.
The 13,122.
Right.
992.
So that's what was used when
That's our budget.
calculating the levy amounts on that other levy summary sheet. You can tie it back to there.
Okay.
So the revenue, the budget that we're going to adopt is the 14,780,027 plus the tax levy amount. And the expenditures are the 27,903,019. So that's the budget you're going to approve.
So you need a motion to approve the 13,122.
Just to approve the 2018 proposed budget.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget for 2018 of 13,122,992. On page 5.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
Let,
Second.
okay. It's not going to look exactly like that on the paper when it's put in, but we'll.
Okay.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Thank you, Carol. All right. Action items. Approve claims, human services, and license center disbursements.
I'll make a motion to approve the claims.
Second.
Questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Approve abatement for Whitney Steel parcel 21.0484.000 as a parcel should have been classified as homestead.
I'll make a motion to approve the abatement for Whitney Steel parcel.
Second.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approve sign grant agreement with Minnesota State Wildlife Grant Program.
This is what, for Butcher Park, what Val Green talked about.
Last
Have
week.
Jamie from the DNR do some work down there. And it needs to be signed right there. if approved.
Okay. The grant's in the amount of $12,000 and would seem like a good thing.
Butcher Park,
I mean, what are they gonna do with that $12,000?
management of the park.
Okay.
There's invasive species that need to be taken care of, and they would take control of all that.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement with the Minnesota State Wildlife Grant Program.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Pass. The landowner. Consent agenda. There's correspondence to payroll regarding the hiring of Marvin Clevin and the reassignment of Anthony Doctor to engineering technician. And there's correspondence from the Minnesota DNR regarding purchase of trout stream angling access agreement on Thompson Creek and Butterfield Creek. Require no action.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Discussion items.
Would you like to do the auditor's office discussion first?
I think that'd be fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I suppose I can start that. The basic principle I think that this board looks at is that any time that there is a resignation, a retirement, whatever, we try to look at ways of covering that work system-wide, not necessarily in that particular office, but within the building somehow without replacing. In other words, simple attrition. get the work done without having to replace that position. And we look at that position because so much of the workload there is computer related and hasn't been computer related since, I suppose there's been a lot of efficiencies, I'm told. There's been a tremendous amount of efficiency generated by increased computer use, supposedly, since 1990, 2000, whatever. And so when you reduce paperwork, put it on the computer, that should, theoretically, that should reduce your need for staff time. And so we try to look at that. We are not interested, as the two gentlemen that were here at the beginning of the meeting were tremendously alarmed about reducing services to them. And we're not looking at doing a nasty number on the city of Caledonia or the city of Houston or the townships. I'm sure we'll hear about it tonight. We're not interested in doing that. We are simply interested in trying to find ways to get a bit more efficient within the building. And we're well aware that that position is responsible for a fair amount of the work involved in elections. But elections aren't necessarily a weekly occurrence. So we have to balance that, and it ain't easy, folks, and so it takes time to sort through that. And I'm going to shut up and let somebody else.
Can I respond to elections not being a weekly thing? We have elections every year, whether it is an election year or not. This year we've had 3.
Yeah.
In a basic election year, elections begin in about January. Actually, the end of in December, I'm starting to get ready for the township elections. And in March, after those are finished, we have follow-up work to the elections.
We have what?
Follow-up work, getting all the, after elections, we have to post voter history, get all the new voter registrations entered. Then, within a month or so, we're going up to training with the state. 2 of us have to be trained to do the training for the election judges. We have to be certified. As soon as we get back from the training, we are in election mode for the full year. You have no idea what elections involved. It involved writing the trainings, getting training. We trained, I think it was 62 clerks and head judges last election, and 240 election judges. There's a lot of work that goes into that, preparing for it and doing it. All the testing, then we have people filing, then it's ballot preparation. Ballot preparation is huge. We have, I believe it's 40 to 50, I don't know the exact amount of ballot styles. Because, for example, Blackhammer has 4 ballot styles because of their school districts. When you add up all the ballot styles, there are, I want to say it's 50 some. Proofing all that is huge. Making sure those are set up right is huge. Then we have all the testing of the equipment. We have 24 pieces of election equipment that have to be tested. We have to make up the test decks for them. Actually, we have the company that does the ballots, brings us or gives us a test deck. However, we have to also test all the automarks, the handicapped equipment, and insert those in the test decks. In order to get the test decks ready, you're talking a full week of one staff person just to get all those automark ballots prepared and inserted. Then we have to run all of those ballots through all pieces of equipment 4 times to check the program card, the backup program card, the absentee program card, and the backup absentee program card. That's weeks worth of equipment, or of training, or I mean, a person, staff, right there, just doing the testing. Absentee voting has increased tremendously. The last election, we had well over 1,000 people absentee vote in our office. For 3 people in the office to keep up with that is tremendous. You're full-time at the counter trying to do that in addition to keeping up with your work, and then trying to count all those ballots and process them is a 2-person job full-time for the last few days before the election. And then once the election is over, we have all the posting of the voter history, all the new voter registrations to enter. That doesn't happen overnight. That is a full year of work. And also, your comment about computers making things quicker. We are transitioning to a new tax system, hopefully starting next year, which is also an election year. And I have been told that things are not going to transfer over automatically to the new system. Fillmore County told me that they ran a report to show the number of the names entered in the tax system that have to be hand entered over again because they will not transfer automatically. And they said they had over 500 pages of names. There is a lot more work in our department than you realize. And cutting the staff will cut services to the cities and townships, no doubt.
I did get quite a few calls from the clerks around the Houston County township clerks and township officers very concerned about how much they depend on the auditor's office for not just election questions, but many other things. That's the first spot they start with everything. I feel that we really need to have Michelle's position replaced.
I would just comment that it's not like we haven't had elections forever, so I can't imagine that some of this is not routine or redundant. I mean, it's not like you're going to be inventing the wheel each time there's an election. There's got to be a process.
It is a long process.
Okay. We have just hired 2 new ladies in the licensing center. And I have suggested on numerous occasions that we begin to do cross-training in this county. I was here last Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I made numerous trips from where I was meeting and so forth down to the License Bureau 3-4 times each day. Those 4 days I saw 2 ladies in there getting service. I had somebody else, I was gone Friday, so I called and had somebody else in the county building go down and to the License Bureau 4 times. One time there was 1 person and one time there were 2 people. So nobody is going to convince me, and I understand it's cyclical, there's waves in this, but that's 1 week where there's certainly were many hours that could be devoted to other work.
During which time they are training.
Well, they're training, yeah, they're training now.
You are talking a good year to learn that job, a good year. And
Shar, I don't want to get in, but
no, I don't either. However,
but you
I
said,
wish you had
you said when Michelle left that you were after 9 years she was almost trained. I have to say that you could almost train a rock out in the parking lot in 9 years.
You have no idea what the job is involved.
9 years? Yes. I mean, I have been a mayor for 3 years. I own my own business. I manage millions of dollars. I was a college administrator. I do have some idea of what work is and what it involves. Well, So if you didn't get reelected, we'd have to close the courthouse?
I guess we'll see.
Well, it doesn't
I
follow.
didn't say that, Jack. I want to.
I know, but
provide-
I'm saying it because
I
it
want to
sounds like that.
provide- No, I want to provide quality services.
And I understand that.
And
Let me,
cutting staff is not going to do that.
we are, one of the proposals would be to have the company we just contracted with, GIS, to do the splits in the office. There,
Yep.
one year there were 95, the next year there were like 107.
But there are.
When I brought that up, you said, oh, there's many more than that.
No, there's.
It's
a-
not on paper that there are. That's how
Jack,
many there are.
There are about 1,000 deeds that come through in a year.
Okay, so
Everyone has to be
Marion, your
determined.
office, on her job description said that work was 50% of her.
That's a guess.
So if we took, okay, so it's 45, maybe it's 55. So if we take 45 to 55% of her responsibilities away, it frees all
That
kinds
will-
of
no,
time.
That will not reduce her job that much. Figuring out the splits is part of it. There's still all the split work to do.
Well, then she was lying about her
No.
percent?
That company is not going to come in here and change our tax records. They're not going to change the tax program. They're not going to change our transfer files. They're just going
How
to
do you-
draw them out in the. program.
Char, you don't know that. They
Bev,
have,
would
they
you-
have,
I asked Bev to be here because she had a conversation with Schneider about what service they would provide. Bev, would you please speak to that?
When I talked to Jeff last Friday about splits and stuff like that, I wanted to make sure that he was aware that Minnesota has a 10-day turnaround for recording, which means from the time a document, a deed hits my office, till it goes through the auditor's office, the treasurer's office, back to my office, we have to record it, scan it, you know, all sorts of things. 10 days is the turnaround according to statute. When I talked to Jeff from Schneider, he said, well, and we were talking about splits, and he said, I said to him, now you are going to look at all these documents and determine if they are a split. And he goes, well, no. He said what he was told is there's only, what did you say, 100 splits a year? That they would only do the splits.
Drawing
Well,
them in.
okay, how do you know it's a split until you draw that all out? So I asked him, are you gonna look at every deed to see? And he goes, well, no, they're just gonna send us the splits. Well, by the time they draw it out, figure out that it is a split, they've already got the work done. And he told, when I told him about the 10-day turnaround, he said, oh yeah, we'll have the document back to you within 10 days. That's not in compliance with the statute. They have to have it back to the auditor's office within a couple of days so that they have time to do their splitting parts. It goes to the treasurer, they take the fees and whatever they do, then it comes back to my office, and it has to be mailed out before the 10th day, on or before the 10th day. And he said that there's no way he could guarantee that.
Also, it was my understanding, he thinks he's only drawing in the splits. He's not figuring out whether they are a split.
Well, he was under the impression that when it got sent to them, they would be just drawing it in.
Correct.
They would not be determining whether it's a split or not. Nobody knows if it's a split when you have meets and bounds. Fred, I was talking to you about it, the south end of Caledonia here. None of that is, or hardly any of it is platted. So you have 50 by 80 lots in a 40-acre parcel. We don't know that that's a split until you actually draw it out. Well, that's the work that the auditor's office is gonna have to do. The only thing Schneider is gonna do is put it on Beacon.
And we already
I-
have that done in determining if it's a split.
I just talked to Andy this morning, and specifically about that, and he said, I think it'll be working just fine.
Andy,
Our Andy.
oh, our Andy, about what would be working just fine?
The Schneider doing this.
He has no idea what split.
Yeah, Andy doesn't know legal descriptions or how to determine a split.
And we draw every one of them out. Is that correct?
Pretty much.
That's not what I've been told, but I think I would prefer that we have Schneider in here and address these questions specifically to Schneider.
I agree, but I don't think you need the salesman. I think you need the person who's actually going to do the work.
Mhm.
I mean, when Ryan was here, he made it sound like, yes, we can do that, we can do that. When I talked to Jeff the other day, I was under the impression that he is one of the 15 or 16 people that actually do the work. Is that correct?
Yeah, when I met with him last Thursday, and we met in the assessor's office, that he didn't have the kind of hesitation that you're indicating now.
Right, because he didn't realize at that point that there was a 10-day turnaround.
Yes, I did. I talked to him about that.
And I think the confusion is in the 10 days, not, I think the confusion is in the 10 days of beginning to end. It's got to go through more processes within that 10 days.
Schneider doesn't have 10 days. It's the whole process that has 10 days.
Cindy, we're talking about whether Schneider could do splits and turn them in a reasonable amount of time. Do you have any?
I was told an average split could be 3-4 days. That you give it to them, turn around, it's back to us.
And they're drawing it, not getting a split, they are doing the splits and determining if they're
What I was
splits.
told, and I've not seen it in action, was you give them the information, they draw it out, they look at the values, and they split the values and they code them. However, when we get our ag farm, or ag system working on Schneider, we may not need to have that whole process done with them, because that's going to make our ability to split the values a lot easier. So I think trying to put, I mean, I missed what brought this on. What's the real issue?
Your end of doing the values is different than what we're talking about. We're talking about our records and the tax records.
And the recording process.
And that could be done within 3 to 4 days. A 10-day window, what I was told would not be an issue.
And who did you talk to?
I talked to Ryan.
And he's a salesperson. Jeff told me that, yes, Schneider could get the splits done in 10 days. And then I explained to him, no, you don't have 10 days.
I think we need to
You
replace
have,
Michelle.
we all
Just for
have a
elections
10-day
alone.
turnaround.
Sure, can't do it.
Well, I think what we need to do is probably just contact them directly, find out exactly what's
Yeah, it
being
sounds
done.
like we're
Because
talking
if he
two
says he
different
can do
things here.
Less than 10 days, does that 2 days or 9 days?
Right.
And is that taking a split from the beginning? Not once it's determined to be a split, it's taking every parcel
Like
that
which
comes
ones?
in,
Right.
deciding if it's a split, and then dealing with the split.
I think we need to have a clarification in writing.
It
on
sounds
what-
like getting a lot of different opinions on that.
Yeah, because, less than 10 days could be 2 days or not.
Well, and I can't get him back in 9 days and give me 1 day, or Shar and
Right, but I
Donna
just-
and me 1 day.
But we're assuming it's 9 days. It could be 2. We need to have
Right.
We need to
And you'd
have-
need a determination of what is the limit. Is it 5 days for Schneider?
Yeah, I don't know.
You know?
And
No,
they do
Okay.
have more than one person that works on these. And he did also say if you had some ASAP things that they move to the front.
Now, we've had a contract with Schneider in effect now for how long? A week or 2? Is that, or at least
Many
longer
years.
than that? How long is it,
Many
John?
years.
Well,
No.
you're talking the new
No, no, no.
contract.
He's talking
I'm
the new-
about the
new agreement.
With Schneider. How long has that actually been?
Couple weeks.
Couple weeks.
Okay.
Have we, in that amount of time, have we actually had
We've signed
a
this one.
piece of property that has been determined that we have a split involved, and have we gone through that process?
Yeah, have we done a test case, is what you're
Correct.
asking?
No.
Well, but
We've had
the
splits
splits
since then.
is a whole different ballgame than what the augmentation is.
Well,
We hired them for the augmentation, right?
I thought we hired for both.
No.
Am I correct on that?
But the bone of contention here seems to be whether Schneider will be able to effectively deal with those splits in an appropriate amount of time, considering the amount of time that it takes here to prepare that for them or whatever. In any event, I haven't heard that we have actually been through a live process yet to really have any idea what's going to actually
If they can
happen.
do it, if they can do it
Okay.
in the timeline and what the expense of doing that would be over 1,000 splits, say, or 100 splits, but 1,000 documents to be looked at to come up with 100 splits, you know, don't sound like we know enough about this yet. And then we're still looking at 50% tops, it sounds like, of somebody's productivity that was there, is what we'd be looking, if Snyder could do everything.
But that would
that
not
we've done with
replace everything she does with them, because we still do all the work in the transfer files, and we still do all the work in the taxes.
So there's still part of that whole system that'd still be left. So maybe we're down.
That would not
maybe-
be
Okay.
50% of the
I'm
job.
more concerned with the election process, that we do have about 3 elections every year because of townships and everything, and one person can't do it all. And
According to statute, Teresa, the auditor has the ability to hire help if needed during an election, so
okay.
keep that in mind. Let me just, I think what we need to do is get these questions that have been raised today settled, can and can't. I'm going to, Teresa, with your permission, you had sent me an email. Can I address a couple things in there?
Sure.
Okay, because I'm sensing that, you know, we getting accused of this as personal, et cetera. It's not. When there's as Fred pointed out, if there's somebody who leaves, it is the best time for us to do an evaluation as to what we should do, because nobody's going to lose their job, nobody's going to get benefits cut, et cetera, et cetera. Teresa said that the position is key for elections. Okay. We have such good people and department heads and elected officials, but I sense there's a lot of low morale going on right now. We need to support each other to really do good service. I don't disagree that we have good people. But, and then goes on to say, I do continue to hear of micromanaging going on, but I do not hear any details make good decisions. There's a huge difference between micromanaging and managing. If we as a board don't have a responsibility to do what we're doing right now, and that's looking at how we can increase efficiency, how we can save money for the taxpayer, then we may as well take some warm water bottles and set them on these seats. We wouldn't need to come in here and warm them. That's our responsibility. And micromanaging to me is standing over somebody's shoulder in an office and telling them which keys to hit. To ask questions and try to gather information and make informed decisions, that's management. That's not micromanagement. And as far as good people are concerned, if everybody is a good employee and they're all perfect, then we should be on the cover of Time magazine, because there's not an organization in the nation that I know that hires perfect people. And this has nothing to do with anybody's performance that I've seen at this point, other than looking at whether we can do something in an office that would not decrease efficiency but would considerably reduce cost. I would remind people that a family policy for one employee is over $30,000. And I would remind people also that the median household income for Houston County is $54,000. When we have employees making twice what the median income of families is, I think we can ask some questions. Anyone else?
I don't think the median income of 54 includes benefits. I don't think we have too many people making double 54 here.
Well, I think the average, I think Carol, a couple of years ago, he did the average was like, it was quite a bit. 60 or something like that. It was.
Yeah, I think we're above the average. We're not even, we're close to doubling.
Well, I think the top administrators are, though.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's what makes it, but then there's people below.
Well, certainly there are,
But our
but
average is.
my point is, we have enough salary and benefits that we can ask questions to.
Yes. I mean, if.
To the
and like you
people
said,
who are
it's a
paying the
good
bills.
time to ask questions when somebody is left.
Right.
And, there's nothing wrong with asking the questions. What is that position? What do we need? Is there a way to go about it? That's what we're here to discuss that.
A couple things real quick. Looking at that, Jack said the average family was 54, and if even the average employee was making 50, technically that would be double if
I
you
don't
had
think-
half of a family income at 25,000.
Oh,
Would
he's
be,
talking
you know,
average family income?
Family income.
Household.
I know in the city of Houston, I think according to the census, it was like 38 or something like that. I mean, it was low. But let me. I'll say my piece, and we'll get out of here. But a couple of things. One of the things that it seems like we're forgetting, and it's been brought up, and then it kind of gets thrown to the wayside. When we're talking about Schneider helping out with GIS stuff and doing that, the thing that seems to me that we keep forgetting is that we have a surveyor that was hired. One of the reasons he was hired is because he said he had GIS experience. We talked about keeping things in-house, and there was a lot of talk about, well, the surveyor can do a lot of it, and the surveyor's office can do a lot of it. But now we're talking today, and it seems like there's all these questions of, well, can Schneider do it all? Can Schneider do it all? And we've forgotten that we still have capabilities to do some of this work in-house. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, I don't know where this, I wasn't even part of this GIS or Schneider Corp going in and doing splits or anything.
Yeah, and I'm just saying that, I think as far as workload, whether Schneider does it or whatever, I don't, I think there's other places that we can gain efficiencies, in that being one of them, that, I don't want it to be it's all Schneider or nothing. I mean, we have that capability. So when we talk about workload in the auditor's office, and if, okay, well, we can do some of this work, and then the contrary is, but Schneider can't do that. Well, yeah, but in between there, we also have the surveyor that could help out. So I guess I just want to make sure that that's kept in the forefront, that there are opportunities.
All options, but like you said, we'd have to get rid of splits out of that office completely, or even doing that to reduce the functionality of that person by, say, tops 40% of their workload. Would you say, Shar? If you said all of your transactions, say 1,000, you said possibly 50% of your time, but that's no matter if that was all taken over by somebody else. There's still stuff that would have to come out of your office.
Correct.
So it wouldn't be a 50% decrease out of your office.
No.
So I mean, yeah, we could look at what could be done elsewhere and stuff, but what do we lose? I mean, we got to come up with a system. You can't. I mean, discussion's fine, but how could it work? Keep looking at it.
Well, and I guess the last thing that I just wanted to make sure that I got an opportunity to express was that for the 7 years that I've been here, I've seen it time and time again, whether it's with budgets from a monetary aspect or if it's from a personnel aspect. anytime the board talks about cutting money or reducing personnel through attrition or whatever the case may be, there's always going to be department heads, employees that will always want to keep that same budget, that same FTE. And what I've always seen is there's always justifications why. You can always make up an excuse why you need something or why you don't or whatever the case may be. I think the conversation that I've heard between Jack and Fred is a discussion that needs to be had. And that is, this is an opportunity. Can we do more with less? In other places of employment, there is not the opportunity to debate with a department head as this board allows to take place. Schools, from personal experience, you'll have somebody come in, upper administration come in and say, we're cutting, find it. We're cutting, deal with it. And there isn't the allowed dialect back and forth. I'll get to a further point.
Though. They have
back
a
here.
principle that deals, with the teachers and stuff where we don't. We don't have an in-between as a board.
That's what I'm going to get to further down here in the discussion item. But the whole point is, you have a school board, you have a superintendent, you have a principal. We're lacking some of those areas. But the point is, a lot of times when the upper administration comes into, say a teacher or somebody managing, an office, here you go, this is what's happening, you're cutting. And it's not allowed to, well, come before the school board, plead your case, whatever. Decision's been made. So all I'm saying is, we've had opportunities to hear from both sides, and I think it's a good discussion. Other places, it's not even allowed to get that far. But it's questions that I think have to be answered and have to be asked. Can you do more with less? It's the tough decisions that nobody wants to. It's the elephant in the room that nobody wants to ask that. So I'm glad we're having that discussion. So anyway, that's my soapbox. Is that?
Well, I think to conclude this aspect, we need to get this fleshed out more completely so that everybody gets the same information from the same people, so that we're not saying, oh, he didn't say that, he said that, well, he said he could. We'll get it ironed out. Is that a consensus that we?
Are we going to ask somebody to do that, to talk to Snyder and give them the exact information of everything, so we know, can they take it from point A to point B, how much time, how much money?
And could all the departments involved be in these meetings, rather than they are done without me even there?
I would.
Well, I would think if we're looking at Char's area, she should definitely be involved to be able to say, this is how it's got to start, and this is how it's got to end. This is where I started, and this is where I ended.
But is this something where you have them come before the board in a board meeting so that?
I think
it needs
Val and I and the treasurer should meet with them. Because the needs go through the 3 departments. We should all be involved with it.
Go ahead.
Well, Jeff was down last Thursday and Friday. We did arrange a meeting with them. I sent out all county for anybody who has anything to do with the GIS and that. There were a few who took us up on that. There were a few who wanted to get a hold of them other ways. They couldn't make it there. I think that was our start in where we are right now. Jeff told me it's very difficult to find any of Dan's files because the way they were named and things, he knows, but we didn't. So they want to try to find the base of what do we have, where are we going, what do we need, what have we used, and so that he can start building from that base. I think that I will volunteer to go. If you would give me what you guys feel are fair questions to ask and get answers, I will go and contact him and get, or maybe more than one person there, if necessary, and get the results, what they feel they can do in writing, so that we can bring it forward and tell you, this is where we are, this is what he's felt from getting those feelers out, that we need to grow into, what we need to do to get there. And we can have a base where we can start and maybe make better choices in the future, because we'll have better background.
That sounds like a good starting place. Do you have any idea of a timeline?
To get answers?
Uh-huh.
I think if I got from one of you or all of you together questions, I could bring them to him immediately, and they're pretty quick at getting back to me. Even if he could answer a few at a time, maybe he doesn't have all the answers yet, I can give them back to you as I get them, and we can question at a further point. I don't know what you're going to ask, so I don't know.
Well, I don't think we have the expertise to ask the questions.
Well, that was where I was coming from, that we need a couple of other people to be asking some of those questions.
Group meeting.
We could ask the question, but we, as board members,
It would just be
might
a
not
question
phrase it
somebody
in a
else
way that
told me
would
to
make
ask,
sense, so.
Let me rephrase that.
Yeah.
Why don't you, once you've decided, get back to me on what questions we need answered. That not maybe it is a group consensus, which is fine. But I think one of you gave a list of, what can we do, what time, what's the cost, and those are the questions I'd like to know, so that we're all on the same page going forward. That I get the questions answered that you want.
Bev?
I personally think sending them a question and getting their answer back is not what we really want, because when you're in a group discussion, Jack, you might bring up a question and it will, I can't even think of the word right now, but it will prompt somebody else, oh yeah, now I have a question that's relating to that.
Well, why don't we get them here?
Yeah,
Right.
discussion is what we need.
Oh, yeah, he can come at any time. I think, well, I shouldn't say at any time, he's got a schedule too.
Okay, well, get,
It's too bad we didn't know this, because he had Thursday and Friday that we got billed out for having him here going through the system. And he had time to talk to everybody. I sent that questionnaire out to everybody, and that was the time for people to come
I
and talk
did
to him.
talk to him, and I did too.
Well, yeah. So then you guys are on base with, he's already got on base.
Right,
with
and
you.
then that's what my discussion today was is from the information I got from Jeff on Friday.
Mhm.
okay.
Well,
Well, invite them back, let us know when, and then,
But please
Or-
schedule it when we can be here, because I know I've got a conference coming up in October. So please let me know, don't just set a date. Talk to us and make sure it
Well, why don't you guys
works.
tell me which dates you
Okay.
can't, because.
Okay.
Is that,
Yep.
does that sound good? Okay,
Sound bad?
Yep.
all right.
Now, do we want to have board representation at that meeting?
Yeah.
And if so, who? We probably should. All of a sudden, you might wind up
We-
with all 5 board members there, and you can't do
You
that.
can't do that, we can
I
only,
think our land use commissioner should be involved.
Okay.
They're the ones that work with it.
I would try to make it, depending on the dates.
Well, just, why don't you let me know what.
Yep.
that's available.
Yeah.
I'll just try to shoot for the best I can do.
I'll be there.
Anybody who's interested in, just email me what days work for you and in the next few weeks, and I'll see what's best.
Okay. All right, thank you,
I will do
everyone.
that.
Fred, anything else from,
Well, we had a meeting this morning, Teresa and I did, with the Finance Committee. And one thing that came up there is kind of related to a little bit of a local controversy at this point, and that's the park situation. And we haven't had very good communication between the county and the people doing, or the people saying what work needs to be done at especially Wildcat Park. And some things have been actually in process, and there have been cases where there have been things actually done down there that really haven't been approved through channels. And so that's where part of the problem has come. And maybe we need to really take a good look at the timelines that we're following, the budgeting process that we're following with the park, all that sort of thing. I know it's not, in comparison with the total budget that we look at, it's really not a whole lot of money we're talking about. It's like roughly 150,000 upper end that we're talking about, but maybe we do need to put it on the agenda. And take a good look
Actually,
at how
Fred,
we
I think
handle that.
the last meeting we had, it's actually 300,000, is it not?
No, that's what we've spent over the last few years.
Oh, okay.
The
I
annual
was
budget
talking
isn't
about,
that.
Oh,
I was talking about annual. What
annual.
I saw on a piece of paper
Okay.
this morning relative to annual.
Okay. Well,
150 be upper end, but
Yeah,
okay.
no, but our last
But the
meeting.
point is still.
Right.
Yeah.
The last meeting at Wildcat, I mean, we talked about, why can't we make money? What should we do? How can we? Well, somebody left the meeting apparently thinking we're closing Wildcat, and so we set Facebook on fire, and so that was bizarre. But I tried to explain that we need to get a good handle on. I mean, as I said at that meeting, we have a landlord-tenant relationship where the tenant just keeps piling up bills, and we need to get some clarification. If we got 9 sites that would add money, let's find out, can we do it, and so forth. So, but now the Corps moved to November 7th, which is obviously the camping season's over, but I don't think it needs to be going full blast when we talk about it. But we just need to figure out, we had a discussion, Carol, correct me if I'm wrong, but about how we charge back our own employees doing work down there and how that reflects in the budget. So we got things to straighten out. I talked to a number of people. Shar got me a list of people in permanent positions there. We do draw from quite a wide range. It's an asset to get that kind of tourism into the county. There's no doubt about it. But I don't think there's anything that we should be running a big deficit to operate. I mean, you could get requests from all kinds of people. Can you go into debt and so we could do this? Can you go into debt so we can do that? I think we need to be responsible. So, anything else, Fred?
No, I just had a concern from that meeting about that we were really actually going to start dealing a little bit more with that.
Good.
That's fine.
Teresa?
I got lots of.
I just wanted to add that, we now have Botcher Park actually going in the same direction where there's improvements and people want to use it, but we haven't budgeted any money for it, and there's been work done.
By the
So
county
it's something
forces
that I think
again.
we need to get straightened around
Right.
or, address before we end up in another situation.
Well, let me ask this, and I should know it, but say we have our county trucks come over and clean the snow off this parking lot.
We get billed.
We get billed.
Because they, in setting their budget, they include that as revenue, so it offsets the levy amount that they need. And there have just been cases, like in Wildcat, with those really big projects where it's actually money that's been levied, but they're billing us for it. So kind of like they're getting it twice.
See, that's one of the things.
Out of the general fund, when should it be?
Yeah, that's one of the things we definitely need to clarify.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Teresa, did you have?
I got a lot of calls about
no,
the
okay.
rumors on Wildcat also, and I even had one person yesterday call and say, well, they make well over 100,000 every year, how can you be so much in debt? And we've done a lot of improvements in the last 3 years with the playground and the bathrooms and showers and stuff. But it was mainly, I said, we're just trying to reassure people that we're trying to get a handle on the financial part of it, that we're not shutting it down, per se.
Good.
So, and, like I said, we already went through the auditor's office, and part of my concern was I was a township officer for 20 years, and I so depended on the auditor's office, especially for election time. But if we can hire people for election time, doesn't seem to me real efficient use of our money, but it could be. And I did have EMS meeting, the Joint Power Board for Emergency Medical Services, and we had a state senator that came to the meeting helping us, because seatbelt money is going down, and that's one of our major funding sources. People are using their seatbelts, so that's a good thing. But so they're looking at more of distracted driving, fines and stuff that could go to EMS.
To raise some funds.
Yeah. So,
Which
and that's a big
distracted
thing,
driving
people
is bad.
texting, people
Yes.
on the phone, that kind of stuff. So we had a really, really good meeting when you have the state senators coming to it, they really see how much we need them. So, and then I had workforce development meeting, and our office here in Caledonia and Houston County has been down for the last couple months because we didn't have a hire, but we do now, and evidently she's awesome, working with social services, human services. And there's also a big change going on with workforce development, that we're getting more people that are like 61 and older coming in that have been laid off or lost their jobs. And they're not really looking for a new job. They're looking for, where do I go from here? Financial help, financial.
How do I set up?
Yeah,
for
how do I,
Social
yeah,
Security,
that kind of
everything
thing,
else,
so it's been a little
insurance.
bit busier that way. There's a Walmart closing, which I thought was really, you never hear Walmart's closing, but the one in Blue Earth is closing. Also, there's been a lot of discussion with this Destination Medical in Rochester, that the clinics in Albert Lee and Wabash Mayo is thinking of closing them and redoing services that way. That's a lot of discussion just going on as discussion. So those were the two meetings, and then I also went to the Historical Society, and I see we got a notice today from Char about the dedication of the elevator on Friday afternoon. But I went last Saturday, they had their annual tour. We went to the Driftless Interpretive Center down by Lansing. Awesome. It's
Heard that's
really,
pretty good.
really nice. So we got a tour of that. It's mainly used by classes and people that want to learn about the soil and water and DNR issues, and it was good. It's hands-on, so it's a good thing. That's basically the 3 meetings I had.
Thank you. Scott?
Jail reuse, at a meeting, broke it down into 3 possible ideas for the jail. They're going to do some in-depth looking at the 3 possible uses. Office space mostly would have to be in-county office space. We didn't feel there was enough, there's not need outside of county. We have enough empty office spaces around town. The other one would be city library, maybe including EDA or some other office possibly from the county. The city library, the city is interested in the possibility of leasing a library area, or the third option was a brew pub. Yeah, biggest, which really most people felt would actually go, there's a state ordinance, or actually a federal ordinance that you can't be within 1,000 feet of a government building. But said that was from breweries in the past with the smell in the process that it's been done. They're just quoting one in St. Paul that they have a brew pub, and the floor above it is a federal building, you know, so they're saying that's not completely out the window. They're gonna check with different agencies and see if it's possible. Those are kind of the three options that are being heavily looked at.
Interesting.
Scott, one question. On these discussions of various potential uses for that building, what has been the discussion on handicapped access if it's going to be a public building?
No matter what, it's gotta be, pretty much for anything, it's gotta be handicap accessible.
And
In just about anything we put in there.
what kind of,
That's
any work been done on cost estimates on that?
No, just, it's only at the point of breaking down so they can start looking at possible uses.
Yeah,
Like I said, we can't go any farther until we get it down to at least a few possible
Yeah,
uses.
yeah, you've got it down to 3, and that's why I asked the question
Yeah.
now.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
But that has been discussed many times, is, you know, it's gotta be handicap accessible.
Yeah.
How can we do it? And they'll work on that now that they have it down to 3. If we did this one, and there's another big thing, of the three things, the old jail cells can be removed and still get grant funding, historic grant funding, but the interior walls of the old house would have to stay to get grant funding, and that grant funding is up to 40% of what you put into it. So that kind of determines what you can do too, a little bit.
Now, that's grant funding from what?
Historic grant funding, I don't know all the names and initials, but
Yeah,
they,
okay. Basically assume Historical Society, or don't we dare assume that?
I don't
Not
think so.
this, not the local, but I mean the
Right, it's
state.
nothing to do with the local. They have a whole different fund, I can't remember the name of it, but it
Yeah.
it's to keep it historic to some degree.
Yeah, okay.
And they tell you the degrees that you gotta keep historic, and from what we
Yeah.
can find so far, the jails were put in, the cells were located in, they weren't built in, and a part of the structure, they could be removed. The
Yeah.
original housing of the sheriff and everything is historic, so
Yeah, okay.
learned a lot.
Okay. Thank you.
That's it for me.
The only thing that I just wanted to bring up, we talked about everything else, the whole Wildcat thing. I got a bunch of calls, and I told the one lady, I said, Winnebago's closing, Wildcat's not, don't worry about it. So I got those same calls. The one thing I did want to talk about that I feel is extremely important that get brought up, especially going through the budgeting time, I brought up a lot, and it keeps getting kicked down the road. And I would like to have more discussion on Houston County going forward with some sort of an administrator or coordinator. We already talked today, and it was already brought up that, well, we could have done this, but we don't have an administrator. When we look at, talking about the auditor's office, Fred, you kind of started off talking about like efficiencies. In going through with efficiencies, we lose a lot of efficiencies because we do not have a point person. We talk about schools. You've got a superintendent, you've got a principal, you've got somebody to go to, and here we don't. And I know Jack brought up the email with Teresa. We talk about micromanaging. And whatever your definition of micromanaging is, do I feel that it happens at the county board level? Yeah, we should not be involved as heavily as we are with daily, day-to-day operations. We are a board of 5 individuals, 5 different opinions that are only here but a few hours. So we don't have necessarily the grasp that somebody in the position being here day in and day out, working with employees and department heads would have. Talking with the head of AMC, it was brought up about what to do. Majority of counties, vast majority of counties have some sort of administrative coordinator. And talking with the head of AMC, we were talking about finances, how to fund it, and she had made the comment that she said this is a position that will fund itself through efficiencies, through working with other department heads, time saved, cost savings. We also have quite a bit of monies that we could utilize to fund that. But it's a position that if we continue to keep going down this road, the county is losing thousands of dollars every year, tens of thousands of dollars, and even some year you could even say hundreds of thousands of dollars when we have issues coming up with other employees, and we have all this, we've had investigations and talking with employees, and a lot of it's because the board can't do it itself, and we do not have a point person. Being that it's budget time, we have to talk about this, and this is something that needs to be looked at very closely.
I think relative to that, this might be an ideal budget year since we're looking at a pretty sound financial situation to at least discuss it. So however you want to go about it.
Like we put the 1%.
Well, we could do it without. And here's the thing. When you look at potential creative financing, there is ways to fund things. Yes, it would fund itself, but when we look at what this county has done in the past, we have passed a 2% wheelage tax, roughly. That money is going to the highway department. The highway department uses that for the 249 road repaving project, which then can be taken out of the budget for other things. So then they're using that to buy equipment. But we've known that you've got a $7.5 million surplus over there. So you could take even that wheelage tax money. It has to stay with the highway department. I get that, but what that would have been replacing could have been brought over for that. We've got the home health aides that no longer are there. That also helps for that. I mean, there's plenty of ways to fund it. And like I said, this is one of those ways that I am very much for 0%, not raising taxes. And I don't believe you'd have to raise taxes for this position. But if for some reason you did, this is one of those things that it is absolutely worth it because of what you can gain in being productive. And I would like to have a set aside time during a board meeting to discuss this further, or
get it on the agenda.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, put it on discussion agenda.
Anything else?
No.
Okay, thank you. I just mentioned that I think we all, those of us that went on the soil and water tour, interesting.
Yeah.
Impressive, actually. And I got to a section of the county I'd never been in, but it was impressive. I'm glad we went on the tour. I was here Wednesday to meet with the state auditors. Carol, that was Wednesday, was it not? Yeah. And we got a very nice report. They always indicate things that we could improve, but then they kind of add after that, we understand you're a small county and your staff is limited in who can approve something else from somebody else, but I would say it was definitely a feather in Carol's hat. I think she does an outstanding job with that, and the other budget people from the departments were all there and have performed admirably. So we really didn't get any substantial hand slapping, did we, Carol? Everything was pretty. Yeah.
But they're going to find something.
Kind of like the fire inspector. Each trip there'll be something they can't.
Different
Yeah.
next year, but
So,
they didn't say the year before.
But thank you anyhow.
Yeah, good job.
And you should be getting your copy of the audit in the mail.
Okay. All right. Closing public comment? No? All right.
Now's your chance.
I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.